Welcome to A Call to Action, a series presented by Great Eastern Radio and Brattleboro Community Television. We're covering many different topics from broadband service in our smaller communities to serving our neighborhoods. Today, we're talking with Joshua Cohen, who is a lawyer in the Deerfield Valley. He specializes in student loans, but also brings to the table the ability to help navigate through some of what is the tenuous situation between the SBA loans, CARES Act, and the EIDL emergency funds. Welcome to A Call to Action, Josh.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. So you are clearly sheltering in place at your home,
Yes, I am.
and you are and you and your practice are located in Dover, Vermont, correct?
That is correct. We're in Westover, Vermont.
All right, great. And you've and just so that people have a kind of a line they can draw, you've been doing this roughly since 2008?
That is correct. 2008 is when I started, and it's taken off, and I've been doing student loan work ever since.
All right, interesting. We'll get into that in a minute, but first, the number one issue is when people are calling you now, what are you counseling people to do? What's the biggest issue that you've hit since this whole pandemic thing has just become the real deal?
Well, because my presence is known for student loans, I'm still getting the same calls. What do I do with my student loans? But now there's a sense of urgency and mass confusion because whenever the government puts out a bulletin, nobody understands it. They seem to lack the ability to write in clear, precise, plain English. So I do a lot of translating.
Right. Well, I think I mentioned to you as we were setting up this interview that I had a chance to speak with a gentleman called Alexander Ginsberg, who was part of the Pillsbury law firm, and they helped craft the language. And I think that CARES Act bill is like 1,400 pages long. So, kind of picking the parts that you understand about it and helping, I think, are critical. So have you been getting a lot of any other calls regarding that, or is it just basically still been student loans?
It's mainly student loans. I do have a few past clients that are looking for just consumer law, counseling in general, what to do with their credit cards, things of that sort. Um, Mortgage industry has been pretty good about saying, call us, we'll see what we can do for you.
Right.
And the auto industry has done the same thing in the sense, call us, we'll see what we can do. But credit cards, there's still a question of, what do I do? Although in truth, many credit card companies are also working with people. It's very different than what we saw in 2008 when the banks just kind of held back their hands and said, sorry, can't help you.
Right.
This time they seem to be taking a much more active role of, let's see what we can do to help you a little bit.
All right. And why do you suppose that is? I mean, obviously this is global. This is, we're going to see, unemployment rates levied to the same of the Great Depression. I mean, is that factoring in now?
I think it is. I mean, the bottom line is if money doesn't move, the economy doesn't move. And banks are in the industry of moving money from borrowing to getting paid back to lending it and things of that sort. I think the mortgage industry in particular, I don't want to say they learned a lesson from 28, 29, but the foreclosure crisis was eye-opening for them. And I think part of the issue is, and people don't like to say it, is bankruptcy. When you had people that couldn't afford their loans, nobody wanted to file bankruptcy. They wanted an affordable payment plan. And when the banks refused to work with them, you walk into bankruptcy court, you let go of the house, and now all these banks became realtors, and that's not their industry. And so I would hope that some of it is how to grease the wheel and how to keep things moving. And this is also much more catastrophic because of the scale that you pointed out. This is affecting people that don't own homes. It's affecting renters. It's affecting landlords. It's the entire supply chain is affected in that sense. And so banks are in the position of, let's keep things moving. And there's also the question of when is this going to end? How soon can it end? And we're not at a dead stop. I mean, there are quite a few businesses that are surviving virtually, for me as an example. And there are some industries still moving. The food industry is still moving. Trucking is still moving. So, it's a trickle, but it's still moving. And the banks, I think, see if we can bridge, and hopefully this is only 3 or 4 months long, then we can get to the other side and we can make things move. And that's where I think the banks are really looking for and being optimistic.
Well, I think you touched on something that is interesting, and I'm just going to jump forward a little bit. That this is not going to be this thing where it miraculously ends. I mean, it's not a situation where we say, "Hey, congratulations, it's over. Go back out and hit it like you have been." The economy will take likely, and I'm not trying to put fear into people, but I think it's going to be about a, a 2 year climb back into what is normal, a year at the minimum. What should people be doing now to kind of prepare for that?
I look, I think number one rule is don't don't wallow in the fear of what's going on. I mean, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
It's more of, and I may be way optimistic on this, is look at the opportunities that might be presented to you. Um, if you've got a business that can survive online, that can do virtual business, then you're ahead of the curve. Um, obviously this is going to change how business is done forever. Um, and the joke meme that went around the first week was, hey, I guess that meeting really could have been an email. Well,
Right.
it makes you wonder, do we still need office environments the same way? My practice has been virtual since 2012 when I moved back up to Vermont. But I happen to have a model where I don't need to see people in front of me. And I got to tell you, people enjoy the fact that I give them a phone call. They never have to leave whatever it is they're doing. They don't have to drive. Um, and it's easier. And a lot of businesses are looking at it going, there's no reason it can't work that way. And if you have a tangible business, a tangible product, okay, I think the shipping industry is about to take off. If it hasn't already. You have non-essential businesses that when they do open, shipping is going to be the first thing that they can start doing. Yes, we still want to get out and want to exercise, want to do things, and we want personal interaction. But the whole idea of a virtual economy, it's here. And you either get on the train or you're going to be left behind. You know, I teach a workshop for attorneys to do what I do, and I bring in my brother to teach marketing for half a day. And the first question is, how many of you have a website that's mobile enabled, that works on a cell phone? And to me, I always thought that was a funny question, but it's amazing how many hands go up and say, actually, it doesn't work on a cell phone. Now's the time to retool your business to make it mobile friendly, make it tablet friendly. If you can, and I think many businesses can, I think this is a great retooling opportunity, a learning opportunity.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get back into some of the nuts and bolts things. Some of the things that people feel like they need to control in the immediate. You've been laid off. You've been furloughed. Whatever your situation is, you have student loans. You've got business loans, mortgages. What's the first thing that people should be doing right now?
I think the first thing people should be doing is taking a look at their budget and what are they spending money on and what are those fixed bills, the telephone, the internet, the rent, the mortgage, and even their insurance policies, things of that sort. Start calling all of those companies and find out what they're offering. Again, most mortgages are offering some kind of deferment or help. Um, I called my auto finance company that wasn't advertising anything, and they said, yes, we have a program. You don't know until you ask.
Right.
So your auto payments you can help with, your credit card payments, health insurance. I don't know what they're doing with that. Give them a call. Even phone companies and internet companies are offering something. And it may not be looking for a flat out non-payment. It might be a reduced payment, um, things of that sort. I think the other very important thing is for anyone that has auto payments, auto debit payments, those are the first ones to tackle because you don't want to lose that money if you really can't afford to. And most companies are being fair about that. You have the right under both state and federal law to cancel that auto debit anyway. If you're controlling it on your side of the bank, then log into your bank account and cut all of those auto payments and start doing things manually. But it's really take a hard look at your budget and you know what what vendors do you have. At the end of the day, whether they give you a deferment or not, you may not make that payment. The question is, how is that going to look in the long run?
Right.
And I will tell you the one thing I don't want anyone to worry about is their credit. I can't tell you how many people call me throughout the year. Oh, I'm nervous about my credit. Meanwhile, they're $100,000 in debt. credit is the last thing to worry about. In this situation, credit is the last thing to worry about. You worry about your health, you worry about your home, you worry about your family.
Okay. So do you foresee for people who may have to go into a default situation, and I think that was really good advice actually, and I do want to just back up for a second and say that anybody who has an auto payment right now who may have been furloughed or lose their job, to go in there and to stop that, to take more control. I think that that is really sound advice right now. That doesn't necessarily mean that you won't make that payment, but that means that you're not going to be in a situation where you think you're going to feed your family that week and you forgot the car payment came out of the checking account. So I just want to put a fine point on that. Do you think that the credit bureau will look back at this point in time as somebody who knows about consumer law and just say, well, listen, the last 6 months of what happened here, we can't factor that into anybody's credit score?
I believe they will. And like you said, the CARES Act is huge. And I believe there was provision in there about credit reporting as well. And most lenders have come forward and say, we're not even reporting to the credit bureaus during this time. You know, that's one of the things. If you're late with your mortgage, there's no late fees and they're not reporting it. So I think at least the next 60 days through June, you know, credit is just going to have this big hole. Whether you made good or bad payments, it probably won't be there. And I think every lender is, you know, on the other side of this, when you're looking for credit, when you're applying for credit, I think they're going to look at this and go, this was beyond anyone's control. No, I don't think you can get away and say, oh, this person's a deadbeat. No, this person's trying to survive. And
Right.
that, you know,
All right. So let's get into something that's in your wheelhouse, student loans. Now, how do these things fold into the CARES Act?
so, like I said, the federal government has a problem speaking plain English. And what people need to pay attention to here is they suspended payments and they lowered interest to 0%. And if you're in default, they're not chasing you. But the fine point you have to pay attention to is if your loan is held by the government, meaning specifically the Department of Education. What that means in plain English for people that are aware of their loans, if they have direct federal loans, there are two programs under the Department of Education. There's direct federal loans, which means you borrow directly from the Department of Education. And then there's the older program that started back in the 60s is FFEL, the Federal Family Education Loan Program. Those are loans not originated by the Department of Education. They were originated by banks or guarantee agencies such as VSAC or credit unions, anyone but the Department of Education. These loans were available from 65 when the program came out until 2010. So you're talking my generation, your generation, we all had FFELs. The direct loan program didn't start until 93, and as of 2010 is the only program. So anyone that has a new loan after 2010, they have a direct loan, they are protected by the CARES Act. Those of us that have older loans, those FFELs, we're not protected. Our interest rate is the same thing. Payments are still due. If we're in default, they're still chasing us. And so a lot of people, they read the news, they read the headline, which says, oh, federal loans don't have a payment, and they go about their life. And next month they'll get a bill and they say, oh, I don't have to pay attention to it. When in truth, they didn't pay attention to the news story, which is it must be held by the Department of Education. The other problem there is people assume if it's a federal loan, it must be held by the Department of Education. And as I just explained, that's absolutely not true. A large or a good portion of federal loans are these FFEL loans not held by Department of Education. So I will just say the first place to go to figure that out is you can go onto the government's website, studentaid.gov. That's the database where all of your student loan information is, whether you paid off your loan or you still have a balance. Go there and you can drill down and find out each one of your loans that have a balance. It will clearly say direct loan or FFEL loan. And the third, the stepchild here are Perkins loans. Perkins loans are originated by the school and they're probably held by the school. Those are also not protected by CARES. So you may have a jumble of loans. Some of them are protected, some of them aren't. And you need to drill down and figure it out. The easy fix on the surface, you can consolidate those FFEL and Perkin loans. And if you do that right now, they automatically become direct loans because that's the only program available. That takes 30 to 90 days. So if you do it right now, figure by June, July, your loans will be direct. That means you will fall under the CARES Act. So for July, August, and September, no payment due, 0% interest, everything's good.
Okay. All right. But as you pointed out several times in this conversation, the federal government doesn't put things in plain English. So navigating this stuff is frustrating. I have talked to many business owners right now who have been trying to apply for the for the EIDL loans, that emergency $10,000 loan, who are frustrated. I know of a few that have had success because they hit it early and they went through their banks to get these loans. But how important is it right now not to go it alone?
I mean, this is it. I think it's important to do your research, whether that's your Google research, your SBA loan research directly through the websites. Um, Believe it or not, lawyers can be helpful. Um, and that's not saying you need to have, an hour-long virtual conversation with them, but, to have either a lawyer or even CPAs, financial professionals, this is what they do. And even CPAs should understand how this works because it's SBA, it's loans, and it's taxes. So as long as you have a financial professional or legal professional that's available to help, that's really what you need. The bottom line is research, research, and research again. And when you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask those questions. This is just like being in school. When you raise your hand to ask that question, you're not the only one with the question. You're just the brave soul willing to throw it out there. So be that brave soul and do that. I will also mention many of the marketing savvy lawyers, financial planners, so on and so forth, they already have tons of blogs out there. Some of them are doing videos. I myself am doing videos weekly to keep things updated. You can just watch that. A lot of the information is out there for free. Find the professional that you like their delivery and their message, and if you need to get a hold of them, most of them have email addresses. You can drop them a quick question.
Right. As far as let's touch back onto the SBA loans, and I think this has been a bigger part of the topic, especially for that small business owner. Who is the point of contact in our part of the world, which is Southern Vermont, Windham, and Bennington County? Who is the contact person down here for that?
So the actual contact person I'm not aware of. The Vermont SBA is available. I do know that BDCC, Brattleboro Development Corp, is doing weekly webinars on Friday afternoons. If you're not aware of those, contact them. I know particularly the Southern Vermont Chamber in Wilmington has been very active about creating resources and links. And Eric there has been doing a great job of just making sure the information is available. Um, and I do know the local banks have also been active. If you have a relationship with any of the local banks, call them and ask them who the contact person is. Both Brattleboro Savings and Loan has 2 or 3 contact people in Brattleboro. People's Bank has got their contacts, and so I know they're moving through it as best they can. And really, the bottom line is whoever you already have a relationship with, mind that a little bit more.
All right. So the one of the things that you're doing now, for those people who just get stonewalled and get a little frustrated, you're actually you're making yourself available to answer these questions. You have greatly reduced your rate to make that affordable. Can you talk about that, and how do people get a hold of you should this interview stimulate some questions and they want to reach out?
Sure. So the first place to start is through my website, www.thestudentloanlawyer.com. Again, I have a blog on there that I update whenever there's an update necessary. I'm doing weekly videos as well every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And that's through Facebook, so people can actually log in and ask questions live. And if I see it in the comment, I'll answer it. You can also schedule an appointment with me one-on-one, which I do either on the phone or I'll do a Zoom session. I give you 30 minutes for $99. And when people schedule that, they get a checklist email from me so that they can get me their information prior to that 30 minutes. So we're not spending 30 minutes refreshing me. We're spending 30 full minutes on uh, diving into what the issue is, educating them, translating what their concerns are, and then um, finding a solution, and then also talking about implementation. And I'll tell you, most people don't need me after that call. It's here's what you need to do, here are the resources, and I'm always available to people after that. They can drop me an email. My staff is always available. We're still working 40 hours a week remotely, and we're always available.
Okay, very good. Uh, Josh, anything you feel like we might have left out that we should touch on before we say goodbye?
I do want to mention private loans. I did skip over that. So
Okay.
there are some private student loans out there. Many people have those. And my advice is the same as with mortgages and auto. Call your lender, see what they're offering. Most private loans come with at least 24 to 36 months of forbearance. If you haven't eaten that up, they might give you more. Some lenders are actually going above and beyond and offering a special deferment just for this time. And again, it's the exact same thing as any other credit. You do what you have to do to survive. And if they don't give you the deferment, well, then if you can't pay, you can't pay. But reach out to them, and they may pleasantly surprise you.
So just to reiterate one point that we hadn't touched on. So Josh here is available. It doesn't matter where you're viewing this video. I mean, we both reside in Windham County, Vermont, but that doesn't mean if somebody from Sacramento, California has a question about a student loan that they can't reach out to you.
That's correct. I help people all over the globe.
All right, great. Um, Joshua, thanks for jumping on a call to action today. Uh,
Thanks for having me.
and helping us kind of navigate what are some choppy waters.
Yep. Again, I'm here to be a resource as best I can.
Thank you.
Thank you.